Hi everybody and welcome back to Kevin's Upfront Opinion today. So today what I thought I'd speak about briefly is why are there so many women, especially on TikTok, talking about men's mental health? Okay, because what I noticed, and this is something I personally noticed. Now, I'll give you a bit of a backstory. Last year, I had a breakdown. Okay. And I was always the type of person, always knew that I had mental health issues going back late teens, early 20s. Okay. So I've been going on for a long time, but I always dealt with myself, delved into work, ignored it, pretend everything was okay. As I've always said, I've always worked in sales most of my life. And salespeople are like actors. They put on an act at the end of the day. And then when I eventually did crash, which was what, about 3 days after speaking to my ex-girlfriend in regards to my estranged daughter that I've still not seen after what now over 16 years, which she's refused to allow me to see her. Ended up cracking, and I was literally sat on the beach just crying my eyes out because I've always refused to speak to anybody about it. And then my wife made me go and get professional help. Went to see my doctor, got put on antidepressants. Doctor demanded that I went and saw a counsellor. Yeah, right, I'm not going to see a counsellor. I've seen counsellors before. A waste of time. I refused to see a counsellor point blank. Even if one had got back to me, I was a jog on. I'm not going to speak to you. I'd rather go and speak to some stranger in the pub, to be honest. Not that I really drink anymore. I barely ever drink. And what I noticed was I started going on TikTok an awful lot. Never really used TikTok a great deal. And what I noticed was there were so many women doing videos or creating content in regards to men's mental health. And I thought, why? Because a lot of these women that are actually doing it are blaming women for men's mental health issues. And it got me thinking recently, is men's mental health problems because of women? Okay. And this is my theory. There are some arguments for it. But if you say it is, it's a cop out. It is an absolute cop out. Because I'm a firm believer that everybody's got to always take accountability for their actions. Now, if I take a look at myself, okay, and I don't want to make this video all about me at the end of the day, I can honestly say there are one, two, arguably three things in my life that affected me. Okay, and affected my life long term. And all three of them were due to women. Okay. Was it all my own fault? Did I bring it on myself? One of them I can say that I did. Okay. So, one of the women would be my mother. Things that happened in my childhood. Because I never got to see my father until I was like 18, 19. From the age of 7, never saw him again until I was about 18, 19. So that was a difficult period. So, and one of the things, and I've done videos about this, and I always plead with any woman that ever considers it, do not alienate a child from their parent. Trust me, you don't want to do it. You do not know how much you're going to affect a child. And I know that both me and my sister, we've been in counselling most of our life because of it. Second time, it's almost the same kind of thing, was actually my ex-girlfriend, the one that I mentioned, what I spoke to earlier on this year. And God love her. Obviously, she stopped me from seeing my daughter for the last 16 years. I don't even know if my daughter even knows if I'm alive. Tried contacting her. But obviously my ex has gone out of our way to stop me from seeing her. You know, I've gone down the route of solicitors. She ignored all the solicitor letters. Production companies, as in TV production companies. She ignored all the messages from them. Wasn't until I started putting things on social media that she actually responded to me. But even with that, she still refused to allow me to see my daughter, even though my daughter's an adult at the end of the day now. But any parent can make life difficult. I know, because I lived that life. And the other thing would be a former boss where I was assaulted several times, which was a woman, and I'm not about to hit a woman. Won't even hit my wife as many times as she may have given me a slap in the past. Arguably may have deserved it. You know, so from my point of view, I can say some of my problems that have led to my mental health issues have been caused by women. But that doesn't mean that's the same for all men. Because, you know, it's like, for instance, it can be work issues, is a classic one. Men that are stupid enough to go and have affairs and basically lose everything due to committing adultery. Work pressures. You know, there's so many things, because the fundamental problem when it comes to men, and I can say this myself, is men refuse to talk. They refuse to talk point blank. And I'll give you an exact example. And I'm sorry to bring up my estranged daughter again. I have a friend that I've been friends with for 20 years. Tell him virtually everything. We tell each other everything. I was one of the first people he told when his marriage broke down, and the reason for his marriage breaking down. And I never told him that I had a daughter that I hadn't seen until last year. Her birthday she was 16 in August last year. Never even told him. Don't know why I didn't tell him. And that's the fundamental problem, because men just don't tell people things. And that's why men's problems get so out of control. Because if men speak about them, I would guess, and this is an assumption, men's mental health problems won't be as bad as they are nowadays. Suicide rates in men won't be as bad as well. You know, so when you take that into account, you've actually got to ask yourself the question, and it's quite a simple question, is why is it so bad? You know, because one of the things my wife said to me recently is most men don't have friends. Because if you go back over the years, most men go out on Saturday night or Friday night, go out for a few beers with the lads, go down the pub, chat up some girl, get a few slaps around the face for it. If they're lucky, they might get a dance or a bit more. We'll leave it there. But more likely to get a slap. And those types of things don't happen anymore. They don't. You know, women still do that type of stuff, you know, girly nights out and everything, but men don't. And what I haven't been able to work out, and maybe somebody can tell me this, is why don't men do these types of things anymore? Because women still do them. You know, they go out for a girly night out, whether that's for a dinner, you know, or during the day if they've got kids. You know, I know my wife does. You know, she's pretty much out Monday to Friday, especially during the day. I could actually say Monday to Saturday sometimes. If I'm really lucky, it's Monday to Sunday. But hopefully she don't watch this video and hear me say that. Otherwise, I might be sleeping in the garden tonight. But the reality is, why don't men do this? Because at the end of the day, we're penalising ourselves and we're suffering in silence because most men aren't going to go and see the doctor. They're not going to go and see a counsellor. We'd rather, I almost said, would rather die than go and see a counsellor because they don't want to admit that anything's wrong. You know, so then I come to the realisation, am I surprised that there's so many of these videos? Because in most of these videos that are being created, it's women guessing. Because that's what it is. They're guessing. They're making assumptions on what somebody may have said that may have happened to them. You know, and it's like I've watched so many of these videos, especially on TikTok, you know, calling out a lot of women, saying how badly they've treated men and everything. And there are going to be women that have. I'm not going to hide from that. But how many men treat women badly? Because you can look at it from both sides. And that's the reality. As bad as some men, as some women are to men, how many other men are really bad to women? And all I've got to personally do is look at my own sister. You know, if I look at her previous partners, how bad they've treated her, you know, sometimes I think, you know, maybe she's bloody deserved it. I know it's not a nice thing for me to say, but you can look at it from both sides at the end of the day. You know, it's a bit like me deciding to start creating content on women's mental health problems. Wouldn't do it because I wouldn't have the first clue on what women go through. And that's why I say most of these people that are creating business, they ain't got any idea. You know, even my own wife, when I was going through my problems, I wouldn't speak to her. The only way she found out what I was actually going through is when she starts watching my YouTube videos, or she watches my TikTok channel and she sees the videos I put on TikTok. And then that started getting leaked to her because members of her own family found them and reported them to her. So the reality is, do these women really know what men go through? And I don't believe that they really do. And what they're actually really doing is creating content to get clicks and to make themselves money. You know, they may care about what some men go through, but do they understand? I don't actually think so. So let us know in the comments down below what you think. But for now, thanks for watching, and we'll speak to you all again a bit later.